In 1930, John Maynard Keynes predicted that by the end of the century, we would work 15 hours a week. He assumed that as machines became more capable, they would simply finish our work faster, leaving us with the most human of problems: what to do with our time. We spent decades bracing for the moment the machines would take our chores. We watched the assembly lines. We watched the kiosks. We looked for the replacement of hands. But while we were watching the hands, something else was being outsourced. Not the labor, the agency. The question is no longer whether a machine can do your job. The question is whether you are still the one deciding how your job is done.
In a traditional hierarchy, a decision is a visible event. A manager weighs variables, considers intuition, and takes responsibility for a path. It is a noisy process. It involves friction, disagreement, and risk. Large-scale systems loathe friction. Friction is expensive. Uncertainty is a bug in the balance sheet. Consider the loan officer, or the insurance adjuster, or the hiring manager. They haven't been replaced by a humanoid robot. They are still sitting in the chair. They still draw a salary. But look closer at the sequence of their day. The software provides a recommendation. To deviate from that recommendation requires a written justification. It requires taking a personal risk against a statistical certainty. Over time, the path of least resistance becomes the only path. When the system suggests the answer and punishes the deviation, who is actually making the choice?
This isn't a conspiracy of silicon. It is a convergence of incentives. Organizations value consistency. Consistency is the polite word for predictability. If a doctor follows an algorithmic suggestion and the patient suffers, the liability often rests with the system's design. If a doctor ignores the algorithm and the patient suffers, the liability rests with the doctor. The incentive is to delegate, not because the machine is smarter, but because the machine is unassailable. It offers a form of institutional cover. We are building a world where the human becomes a biological interface for a digital conclusion. We call it augmented intelligence. But if the augmentation is the only thing that carries weight in a meeting, is the human an operator or a witness? What happens to the muscle of judgment when it is never flexed? What happens to the expert when their primary skill becomes knowing how to prompt the system to give them the answer they are already required to provide? The most subtle danger is the feedback loop. Algorithms are trained on history. They look at what happened yesterday to predict what should happen tomorrow. When we outsource decision-making to these models, we aren't just predicting the future, we are mandating it. If a hiring algorithm determines that a certain profile is successful, it will only recommend those profiles. The company then hires those people. The data confirms the algorithm was right. The system creates the reality it was designed to observe. It removes the outlier, the erratic, the creative, the revolutionary, because the outlier is, by definition, a statistical error. We are trading the messiness of human agency for the smoothness of optimization. We are moving toward a world that is perfectly efficient and entirely stagnant. We feel like we are in control because we are the ones holding the device. We are the ones who click confirm. But if the options have been curated, pruned, and pre-vetted by an invisible logic, how much of that choice belongs to us?
The fear was never that the machines would develop a will of their own. The fear is that they would slowly, quietly, and with our full cooperation, replace ours. We have spent centuries defining ourselves by our ability to choose, to weigh the moral, the practical, and the irrational, and to say, this is the way forward. If we reach a point where every meaningful decision in our lives, from who we hire to how we heal to how we govern, is the result of an optimization we cannot explain, and a logic we cannot challenge. Then what exactly is left for us to do?